everyone. How are y'all doing? My name is Aisha and this is my newest YouTube segment called Gardening with a Beauty Queen. I am your host, your gardener, and your beauty queen, Aisha. The must-haves you should have for a beginner gardener. When I started out, like I said, a lot of my information came from my paternal grandfather, but outside of that, what he didn't know, as far as like modern gardening, I had to go to Pinterest. I had to scour the internet to try and find reliable sources, and let me tell you, not every source is reliable. So a lot of gardening is and always will be a bit of trial and error, no matter what. One thing I've said that I love about gardening is that you're always learning. It's never going to be this thing where you feel like you master it, because it's always going to be a learning process, and I love that about gardening. So the first thing that I think you should have as a beginner gardener is time and patience. It's going to be a lot of just turning the ground, a lot of trying to figure out how things are, trying to figure out the weather, a watering pattern. A lot of it is going to be very much trial and error. So if you don't have the time or the patience to do a garden, then I might suggest that this is not the thing for you. The second thing you want to have as a beginner gardener is space for the garden itself. So whether you're going to do a container garden or you're going to do a raised garden like I have, or you're going to do an in-the-ground garden, you need to have the adequate amount of space. So if you don't have that, then you're back at square one, because if you need the space for the plants to breathe. Much like we need space for our homes and an apartment, that sort of thing, you're gonna have as a beginner gardener is the right soil. This is one of the trickiest parts about gardening, in my opinion, because it has to be just right, or as close to right as possible. And I know that sounds really non-specific, but it really has to be that way, okay? So when you're thinking about your soil, my suggestion is to always go to like Home Depot or Lowe's. I actually prefer going to Lowe's more than anything, because I feel like they have a better selection, and if you're gonna get, please purchase from a reputable brand of soil. Don't get like a really cheap off the wall sort of brand of soil, because you get what you pay for. I did that one time. I bought a big bag of like yellow, it's like a yellow bag of compost.
One other thing to mention about adding to your soil is mushroom compost.
And it did not drain
so
very well.
I've used quite a bit of this bag already. The mushroom compost does quite well.
Cause your roots to get overlogged, waterlogged, and then of course they're gonna die. They can't breathe. So the brand that I showed you was Miracle-Gro, and it actually has moisture control, and it's actually made with compost. The thing about that soil in particular, when you put it out and you start spreading it out, it smells like compost. And by compost I mean like chicken poo or cow poo. It literally smells like it. So that's very good soil. Anything Miracle-Gro brand is gonna be probably your best bet, especially starting out. So other things you could put in your soil would be like coffee grinds, vegetable scraps from your kitchen. There are a lot of things that actually serve to really help the soil. Again, it just depends on if you're doing an in-ground, you want to have as much minerals and help as possible for the in-ground soil, especially if your soil is not that great. For a raised garden bed, you can put some of the same things in there. I still put eggshells and uncoated aspirin and Epsom salt and banana peels into my garden. I just use it as a layer. My first layer is typically like leaves or like burnt ashes. I put that down as the first layer, because that will kind of compress once you put the soil and your other compost on top of it, like banana peels and whatnot. And then from there is when I actually put a layer of the soil there, and then I might layer it with some Miracle-Gro pellets, like Mater Magic if I'm doing tomatoes, for instance, or Miracle-Gro like vegetable pellets, and then I put my topsoil of that kind of soil with the Miracle-Gro moisture control made with compost. And then as the time goes on and your season is coming in, you want to start adding nutrients back into the soil, because one thing about container gardens and raised gardens is the nutrients don't stay compacted there as well as an in-ground garden. They kind of drain out. And drainage is good, again, because you want the soil to be able to, aerate and be able to breathe so the plants can breathe. But at the same time, you're also losing nutrients there as well. So you're going to have to, from time to time, start adding nutrients back into the soil. The next thing you're going to need is the right tools, shovels, gloves, water pots, bricks, whatever you're going to need in a garden to dig or to kill things or to enclose the garden itself. You'll need like chicken wire and some plywood, things of that nature. So having the right tools is just as important as the other things that I've listed. Next thing you're going to need is having seeds. Obviously, you need to have seeds. You need to have things to actually grow. Or you need to have starts, and by starts I mean the plants you purchase from like Walmart, Home Depot, or Lowe's. Again, my recommendation is to go to Lowe's and get your starts, because in my area, people at Lowe's that are in the garden center tend to take better care of the plants. The plants are well watered. If you want to see how well the plants are watered, just stick your finger down in the dirt. If it's relatively moist, that means they just watered it. They're keeping good care of it. But when I found that I go to like Home Depot or especially Walmart, unfortunately, it's not watered very well. But again, that's just my area, as I've said before. Just take a look at the health of the plant before you spend that money on it, okay? Starts can be a great investment for you if you want to avoid the whole starting the seeds thing. If you just want to skip that totally, say, you know what, I'll just go to Lowe's and just buy my plants. You're more than welcome to do that, but you also got to count out the cost of buying the soil, getting the containers, getting the concrete blocks for a raised bed, and getting all the minerals and things you need. Like, gardening can be expensive if you start, adding those costs up, which is why I try to recommend people just starting with seeds as opposed to just starting with starts. But if you're a beginner gardener and you just feel intimidated by the whole process, having starts is not a bad deal. Part of my garden was starts as well. I love going to Lowe's and looking what they have, and I kind of judge the price points and see what's good. This past season in the summer, I purchased some tomato plants, and some of them did well, some of them did not do well. That's just the name of the game, whether you start your own seeds or whether you purchase starts. But either way, to have a harvest at all, you got to either have seeds or you got to have starts. The thing I think is really important for a beginner gardener is to have some sort of like pest and weed control. I spend a lot of time out here just de-weeding because I try and keep my garden as chemical free as possible. So I don't like to do all the chemical sprays for weed. I don't like to do that sort of thing, but that's just my personal opinion. But if you're just starting out, you may want to do that. It may save you some time, okay? And then as far as pest control, again, I try to steer clear of the chemical route. So the only chemical that I kind of use is diatomaceous earth, and I use that to get rid of different pests that can affect my garden. But if you look online, there are some natural pest repellents. Like certain plants repel certain pests. You just gotta look online. Like marigolds repel certain pests as well. Peppermint repels certain pests as well. So you just gotta do your research there. I might make a video about it if you guys are really interested in it. Who knows? It may be on the horizon for you guys to see that as well. But one of the best like non-chemical-ish repellent that I have has to do with killing stink bugs, and stink bugs can really decimate your garden if you don't pay attention to it. Stink bugs, or squash bugs as they're called, can affect your squash, it can affect your okra, it can be on your peppers. They just kind of can be very invasive. But best thing for you to do is to mix in 1:1 of Dawn dish soap and water, and you spray it directly on the stink bug and it kills them on contact. So there's that. So just make sure if you want to do that, you got to decide whether you want to keep it as chemical free. As always, I'm going to wrap the video up and just show you how the garden has been blooming, just give you a quick update, and that's how I'll end my videos. As always, like, share, rate, and subscribe. Leave comments below. It helps my engagement. It helps YouTube to say, hey, people like this video. Let's keep promoting it more and more. So please do your part, and I'll do my part and bring you guys more awesome content. Happy gardening! Alright folks, me being in South Georgia, remember how I kind of led on to the fact that it was getting close to fall down here? Yeah, so South Georgia has this thing called a false fall.
And we literally just experienced that this past week. So my summer plants kind of suffered quite a bit because it got down, I think, to like the 50s at night. It was kind of chilly here, pretty chilly. And my summer plants did not like that too well. So you see a lot of the shedding of the okra, it really just kind of shed. It really just kind of shed. But as you can see up top, there is okra still growing. And it actually, once it actually warmed back up after this false fall happened this past week, I came out here, Mom and I, we cut about 6 or 7 okra off of this plant today. So that false fall has passed, and it kind of helped the plant kind of jump back to life. But I don't expect it to be lasting too much longer because, again, fall is coming, but it just takes a little longer in this region of the United States. So here we have my broccoli plant, which really blossomed during that false fall. So I know that sooner or later I'm gonna have some really good broccoli coming off of that. But you know, there's that. So the bell peppers, we came over here today and we actually cut off a few peppers as well. Oh, hey, butterfly. And then of course my marigolds are so bushy, you know, they're just falling all over the place. I can't use all my stakes on my marigolds, you know, I'm trying to keep them for other things, but you know. So the biggest update I have is I put some of my starts out here in the garden. And as you can see, they have gotten a bit sunburnt from the mixed matching of the weather, number one, and number two, because they have this thing called a transplant shock that pretty much happened. And that happens when you're moving your starts from inside to out here in the sun. Yes, artificial light does help them grow and they feed from that, but artificial light is very different from our natural sun. As you can see, I can show you what sunburnt kind of looks like. That's what it looks like when they're sunburned, okay? Now, when I first started gardening and I saw this, I actually pulled up all my plants that look like this. But over time, I've learned not to pull them up because they can and they will spring back to life. They're just kind of shocked right now. As long as that stem is still green and you still see some life, it's going to survive. It's just going to take a minute to kind of bounce back. So I'll kind of treat it and water it and that sort of thing. It'll be fine. It will bounce back.